Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations Race, the final race of the season at Kyoto, the long version of the track, driving Group 1 car. So amazingly, I've managed to put it on pole for this race. I'm not sure how we did this. We didn't practice, we did no practice lobbies, we just did a quick time trial practice, went live on the race, and the final race of the day managed to put it on pole. Now I did know there was potential there because in the first race I could see that even with a bad lap we qualified. I think it was in P5 or P6 or something like that. So I could see that there was definite potential for this race to get a reasonable result. So starting from P1, the perfect position in this race with the dirty air. You can see quite a solid field. We've got Kalster behind us, Devil, who will be very fast around here, and obviously P2 there, Zavic. One of the daily race drivers, probably not pronounced his name correctly, but he does a lot of daily racing in P2, qualified there. So this is going to be all about controlling the dirty air, starting from the best place on the grid in P1 in nice clean air. Decided to go on the medium tyres, so straight away from the start on the medium tyres and trying to build the gap up. You can see people warming their tyres up behind, probably starting on the hard tyres if you're down in that midfield range, and it looked straight away like P2. You can see the gap on turn 1. He seemed to really struggle with them front tyres, so possibly on the hard tyres. That was my guess straight away when I saw it. Pretty much the perfect scenario for me, that if he can hold up the drivers behind and give myself a nice advantage pulling away from everyone in the lead, this would be the perfect opportunity to get a very good result at this race. And I have to say, I did quite enjoy driving this SRT Group 1 car around this track. It was really enjoyable. Like I say, this track is never really one of my strongest tracks, but high downforce cars do tend to suit me. So I don't know how I did it, put it on pole, but we did a reasonably solid lap of a 1 minute, I think it was a 1 minute 36 or 56, 1 minute 56.1 I think it was, or something like that. It wasn't particularly amazing, but it was good enough to start from pole. As you can see, Devil has managed to get himself ahead of the hard tyre runner. So predictably, Devil actually on the mediums, and actually this is not really what I wanted. I wanted Zavic in P2, when he was in P2, to hold up Devil as long as possible. I'm quite surprised that he actually managed to get past, because the dirty air is so strong around here. Maybe Zavic, when he was in P2, was suffering with that hard tyre whilst in my dirty air during the opening half of a lap, and that's gave him so much understeer that Devil with them softer tyres has just found an easy way past and got there. You can see he's into P2 now, and we've got about a 1.4, 1.5 second lead. Doing quite a solid outlap here so far, driving it very nicely, trying to get into a rhythm of this track, trying to just make sure I hook up the corners without making an error. Now this car, we did do an error in race 2, we got it on the curb and spun it completely round, ruined the race, did a rage quit, and that was that race over. So there was the possibility of making an error with this car. So this race, I'm really trying to keep it nice and smooth, make sure the pace is good, because I've got to build up a gap to the hard tyre runner. You can't afford to come out the pits after pitting on the mediums behind anyone on hard tyres. So you can see I'm pushing quite aggressively, but I'm trying to make sure I don't make any mistakes. Gap is staying pretty much static to Devil. Devil probably getting a little bit of dirty air when we go through some of these corners, which is always going to be something that you don't want. It's going to wear out your tyres, it's going to cause you frustration because you just don't get the grip on the entry into the corners. Myself, in nice clean air for a change, driving fairly solid, just trying to keep the tyres in good condition as well. We've got to be very cautious because we've got to go to at least lap 6 really on these medium tyres. I'm going for the 2-stop strategy. Some people were trying a 1-stop strategy. It could work if you were very gentle on your tyres, and also depending on your driving style, but with myself not being particularly strong at this track, it made more sense for me to go for the 2-stopper and just try and get more pace from each set of tyres that we run. As you can see, setting purple sectors obviously on lap 2, because no one's been round yet for a full lap, but Devil staying behind us. We run very wide through that corner. You can see losing a few attempts to Devil there, where I just did miss the apex, braked a little bit too late, but luckily got away with it. We only lost a tenth or two, and Devil still well and truly in that dirty air. And this is the thing, when you're quite closely matched, I think Devil actually had maybe a few tenths advantage over myself in terms of race pace. I think it was pretty clear from that. However, when you've got someone behind you in your slipstream, they're not getting within 1 second of you, because it's so hard to drive behind someone at the moment. Now there is I believe there is going to be improvements to the the slipstream system coming in the next major update, the next main update, which will alter the way that you get the dirty air off the car, so it won't be as severe. So you should be able to follow other cars a little bit better. I'm hoping it's not completely gone, because in a way it's kind of, if you watch F1, it's kind of realistic in a way, because you see the struggles they have. So I think they just need to reduce it slightly on this game, just make it so we can actually follow a little bit closer and maybe go for moves. At the moment in Group 1, for example, round here, you can see you just can't get within 1 second. Devil is clearly faster than me, but he just can't deal with that dirty air, because it's really causing him a lot of trouble through them really fast corners. And obviously this track has some really long fast corners where it's just such an advantage to be in P1. And for myself, just taking full advantage of that, driving nice and smooth. You can see on lap 3, keeping that gap to about 1.1, 1.3 seconds. It's fluctuating, sometimes going up to 1.4, but it's always staying around that distance. And so far, looking very good for myself in the lead of this race. And very surprisingly, I genuinely was quite shocked that we were in the lead of this race. I didn't expect, going into this race, I thought we maybe, maybe able to fight for a top 5, top 7 position. But to be in the lead, this is pretty much not what I expected. A very good opportunity to pick up some very nice points in the final race of the whole season. I think the overall points for this were just under 2.7k, so looking quite good for myself at the moment in P1, running the medium tyres. We've got a massive gap, if you look on the track map as well, developed between myself, Devil, and then P3, the hard tyres run. I think Calster and P3 on the hard tyre, going for a slightly different strategy in this race. And like I say, there was a few different strategies you could run. You could start on hard and then do a long run on the medium, do a one stop, or you could start on the hard, do a few laps, get onto the medium tight and do two longer runs on the medium. There was multiple ways of running this race. I chose for the mediums to start with to build that gap up, and at the moment it's looking like it's working out quite nice, although the race will come back to other drivers at the end when they're obviously on the medium tyres, and depending on how I run this race, we'll be on the harder compound tyre or maybe medium tyres. It all depends how you run this race. As we jump through now to lap 6, this was a lap that I basically thought we have to run to lap 6 with the strategy that I'm on to build the gap up. You can see now a nice gap developing, and it looks like I've actually got the pit stop advantage to actually pit and come out still in clean air. You can see the gap to Devil staying very static around there. Literally nothing he can do. He's definitely a lot faster than me at this combination with this car, but being stuck behind my slipstream, there is zero he can do behind it. And because there's only a few tenths difference between ourselves, maybe 3 tenths, 2 to 3 tenths a lap, something like that, maybe 4 tenths on the other lap, he was probably faster. But when you're in that slipstream, he can't make any gains because the front washes away. He can't get on the power as early, and through particularly the really long corners at this track, you'll see particularly this corner that we're approaching in a moment, this long left-hand corner, you just lose so much front end that you just can't stick with a car through here as we go through it. You see down into 4th gear, trying to bite it in. The front tyres are starting to wear now, so we're having to be a bit cautious and just make sure that we hook these apexes up and keep it nice and smooth. I don't want to make a mistake on this in lap, obviously, to change tyres. Now, my strategy was, I was thinking, now while I'm in this lead, I'm going to come out in clean air because you could see the gap develop behind me. I've got, obviously, Devil behind me. That's not going to be an issue with whatever tyre we put on. Now, I could have put the hard tyres on thinking that he was going to pit, but however, I thought, let's go on to the medium tyre. You can see the gap behind us, so when I pit, I'm going to come out in clean air, and then I'm going to get full use of these medium tyres with no one in front of me. And I feel like this was probably the best strategy to go for. You can see Devil behind. He might try something different though, because he just can't really get past me. There's no fuel saving involved with this race. It's 100% flat out driving to the end, and it's all down to tyre strategy. So I'm going to shoot off into the pits now, straight in, and you see Devil staying out there. Very tactical driving. He's going to try something different, although, watch this though. We come out the pits straight away in clean air. Perfect timing. You can see other people pitting behind me, and this is very nice for myself. You can see out into 100% clean air. Now we've just got to push and see if we can make some gains into Devil's gap. Now, this is the thing, I didn't know what strategy Devil was going to run. He could technically be on a one-stopper, so I've got to push very aggressively here and try and narrow that gap, try and shorten that gap down on this outlap. I did not know what strategy, because if he goes onto hard tyres and then manages to stay within 5 seconds of me, it's going to be very tricky, because I would then have the dirty air and have to go for an overtake, which I don't like driving in someone's slipstream. We've all seen me complain about it. It does annoy me. I I just can't get the most. I need a really strong front end on a car to get the most out of it. So you can see pushing quite aggressively now on this outlap, trying to make some headway into that gap. You can see the gap is coming down, and this is the disadvantage of Devil's strategy, running that extra lap on their medium tyres. He's going to be suffering now, and I've got nice fresh tyres where I'm just building up even bigger lead. You can see the gap is now under 4 seconds, and that means with a pit stop we'd probably come out over 2 seconds ahead of him by this point. Let's keep an eye on that gap as it develops, as Devil is obviously going to shoot off into the pits now on this lap and then pick his tyres. Now I did have a sneaky feeling he would go onto the hard tyres on this stint and try and do a one-stop strategy, because if you look at the gap, we're obviously gaining. We're about 3.5 behind him, something like that now, 3.6, or we're clearly gaining on him all the way through this lap. So we're going to have a few seconds advantage. Now my thought process was, obviously I've done a lap extra now on these tyres. I need to pit again because he's probably seen me on the mediums. I thought he might go for the mediums if he's got extra pace, try and get some good lap times out of the harder tyre. Sorry, he might go for the harder tyre and try and get some good lap times. As you see, he's in the pits with the mediums, and the gap, you can see, is going to be very close as we come out. We're going to be a few seconds ahead. We come out, but he does go onto the hard tyres. But look at this massive issue now is we've nearly got a 3-second gap to Devil, and he's put the hard tyres on. So now, not knowing what sort of strategy is on, I need to push. You can see I'm going to have to start driving pretty aggressive, and that's not always the best way to drive. You normally, sometimes smoother is faster, particularly at tracks like this, and with the long flowing corners, you tend to want to be smooth on the apex and get on the power nice and early. But I need to really try and build that gap up, because if he manages to stay within 4 seconds of me, I then have to go into the pits with harder tyres. As we come to the end of this stint, you can see the gap is now at 4.1 seconds, and that isn't enough. We'd have to keep pushing for a few more laps. However, this is really strange. I personally think Devil should have stayed out at this point. We're obviously pulling away from him. However, he goes into the pits and goes for another set of mediums. Now, was this a mistake? Because if we have a little look at the lap on all the names on the left hand side, you see that Kauster has actually jumped Devil there. He's got ahead of him into turn 1, and this is the ideal situation for me, because now Kauster, on slightly worn medium tyres, I think he's done a few laps on them medium tyres, has actually managed to get ahead of Devil, and Devil now will not be able to use the advantage of them fresh, medium tyres. Whilst I'm on these medium tyres that are, they've still got life in them, I can keep pushing for another lap or two and try and hold on to this gap. All I need to do is make sure that the gap is over 6.5 seconds when I pit, and I should come out in the lead. So this is going to get quite tense now for this race as we jump ahead to the end of the stint on the, you can see, lap 11, and we're going to have a little look at the delta. You can see it's got very close. You can see we're approaching 8.5 seconds. We've actually only lost about 6-7 tenths to Kauster, but Kauster was on all the tyres. So we're coming up to the final lap. Was I going to pit here? Now I decided this was risky. The gap at 7.5 seconds, I could have pitted then, and I would have come out in the lead ahead of Kauster with hard tyres and give it a lap to warm up. But I decided to, let's just risk this. It looks like Kauster's holding off Devil here, so I thought, let's stay out. Let's give ourselves slightly fresher hard tyres to be able to defend against Devil if he does get past Kauster, because with Devil on their medium tyres, I'm going to need as much grip as possible for the last few laps. As you see, going through this long left-hand corner, you can see the tyres definitely starting to fade a little bit now. You can see it on the graph on the telemetry. The fronts are starting to wear. They're the tyres that are going to lose you a lot of time at this track with the long, fast corners, going into the braking zone, trying to be nice and smooth, trying not to make any massive errors, because one little error and this strategy could be totally over, because the pit lane loss was around 5 seconds, 5.5. I wanted to give myself a comfort gap with 6 to 6.5 to ensure that I come out in the lead of this race as we now go through the final lap before we pit again for them hard tyres. The tyres that I didn't really do much testing on. Obviously in time trial you don't run the hard tyre. We hadn't done any practice races, so the only practice we had run on the hards was the first race, because we actually binned it in the second race, I think, before we even put the hard tyres on. So yeah, we hadn't done much running on them hard tyres, but we've only got a few laps to go, and they should actually feel pretty decent towards at this point of the race. With the low fuel, we've got a much lighter car, and they'll actually feel not too dissimilar to the mediums that we're running now, because the mediums obviously starting to wear. as we go through this tight left-hand corner, trying to be very progressive with the power. Very important not to just floor the car through there, as we make a little mistake through here now, I believe. Going into fourth, I forgot to go down into third gear. You can see, kept it in fourth and just about remembered to go down to third, and lost a bit of time. I think we actually lost about half a second to Devil, maybe 6/10 of a second, something like that, through not getting on the power properly. A big mistake to make there as we're going into the pits on this lap. Will we get the jump on him? It looks like we've got a gap big enough to change the tyres and come out still in the lead. This could work out perfectly. As long as I come out still in P1, he's going to be struggling with that dirty air. You can see we've done it. We've come out in the P1 position, but now we've got the hard tyres on, which are going to take a little bit of time to warm up. However, Devil on their medium tyres is obviously going to be pushing on this opening lap. He's going to know that my hard tyres are going to take that lap to heat up and really get into the zone. But we've got about a second lead, and this is perfect for myself, because at this point it's going to be very hard through corners like this for Devil to really make any progress on us. You can see all I've got to do now is keep it smooth, keep it calm, not make any big mistakes, and I should be able to hold on to this position with the strength of the dirty air, obviously, at this track. You can see again Devil there. You can see how his car ran wide straight away. Now he's in my slipstream. I've got to keep this very smooth for these final few laps to hold on to this position in this race. You can see we've got two more cars behind us there. I believe that's Kalster and Zavic, I think it is. Also doing different strategies. I'm not sure what strategy. I think Kalster was on a very unusual strategy, just trying to try something different and get the jump on other cars. But you can see Devil eventually got ahead of him, and I think Zavic might have been on a two-stopper compared to Kalster's one-stopper, I believe. I'm not 100% sure what strategy different people were running, unless Kalster just did one lap on the hard tyres. I'm not 100% sure. As we ride on board, still with myself, keeping that gap to Devil. You can see that this is the issue with when you've got clean air. It's such an advantage. Even though I'm on the harder tyre, Devil's obviously done a few laps already on them tyres. I've only got a few more laps to hold on now. Now these tyres are in good condition that I've got. Devils are starting to wear. Fuel is low. The hard tyres should be a little bit faster with the lighter fuel load. And now Devil's tyres, obviously quite worn, are going to get even more worn sitting in that slipstream, getting the understeer through the corners. His fronts are going to start washing away. His rears are going to be a little bit iffy on the power as we go through that final corner. You can see the gap. He's going to gain down the straights. You can see 4/10 gap. All I've got to do is make sure I don't outbrake myself somewhere, ensure that I bite the car into the apex. You can see taking a very tight line to this corner, holding it on the apex. That's going to give him a real nasty bit of dirty air through that corner, and then on the power all the way through this fast flowing section. You can see Devil behind just can't carry the speed through some of the corners. You're going to see it again through this long left hand corner. Even though he's on the medium tyres, he's going to struggle to be able to carry the speed as I just downshifted into fifth. On the power nice and early, and actually did that very nice on the hard tyre. And you can see again on the exit we gain time on him because we're getting that much more grip on the exit of the corners. Down into first gear again, trying to hold it, and this is very intense. I have to say I was very, very nervous at this point of the race, because I know it doesn't mean anything, it's only an exhibition season, but we're still in the lead of this race. We've got a car that he's actually faster than me, and he's on a faster tyre than me, but we've got the advantage of nice clean air. Nothing can really hinder my car in terms of understeer. It's all down to if I make a mistake. If I keep it 100% clean, we should be able to come away with a very solid result here. I have to say also, with the driving with Kalster's strategy, it really did help me out. So a big thank you to Kalster there in P3 for doing the strategy he did, because it's actually made my life a lot easier in this race, being able to only have to defend for a few laps when his tyres were starting to fade. I think I would have had to pit maybe a lap earlier, or maybe 2 laps earlier, and hold him off for 4 or 5 laps with the harder tyres, which could have been a bit more of an issue with Devil being on much fresher tyres. It would have been a lot harder to do. I still think it would have been possible, but it's definitely made my life 100% easier. But then again, he went for that risky strategy, Devil. I went for a safer strategy of utilising clean air all the time with the softer compound tyre, and that benefited myself, and it's now put me in the position going into the final lap of this race in P1. Can I hold on? We've got 7/10 of a second gap. You can see he is able to get under that second range, which you need to do. However, his tyres are getting worse every single lap, and you can see through this long left hand corner I'm actually gaining time through there now, building that gap up to 9/10. This is looking very good for a nice win at the end of the season, an unexpected win, but one that I will 100% take. and some nice points for the Nations Championship going into the final corner, staying in 5th gear, holding it tight to apex, trying not to make any mistakes on his final. You can see even going down to 4th gear because I did not want to make any sort of error. You can see the gap is over 1 second, so I can afford to take this fairly comfortably. I don't need to push too much. The gap 1.2 seconds, he's really struggling with them tyres now. The medium tyres have come to the end of their life, especially with being in the slipstream. They're struggling. He is obviously, he's probably overdriving as well, because a little bit of frustration. I did actually watch some of Devil's viewpoint of the race, and he was very frustrated with Calster, I believe. But at the end of the day, I think Calster did 100% the correct thing. Calster was trying to go for a one-stop and get P2 out the race, but I do understand from Devil's perspective as well. I've had a similar situation behind Calster as well at Dragon Trail, when it was so frustrating with fresh tyres behind someone, but you just couldn't do anything. But that is the strategy. We all choose our strategy, and Calster did it right, I think, on this to get the jump over P4 and put himself into the podium at this point of the race. And Devil struggling now with that dirty air, 1.2 seconds back, 1.3. Just cannot get on the power, just can't take the speed through the corners. So all I've got to do now is keep it nice and calm all the way to the end of this race. Now you can see going through here, not taking any risks at all, down to about 110. I really took that so easy. You can see he actually caught me up a bit there, but there is no point taking any risks into these final few corners as you go through the final corner on the power. And this is going to be a very, very nice win, and a very welcome win actually for this Nations Championship. Taking, I think this is possibly this might be the first win of this Nations Championship that I've actually had. A solid result, and very happy with that, and some very solid points in this race. You can see a reasonable finishing time. I think it was about 9 seconds slower than what Firestorm did it, but still very happy with coming away with a P1 in the Group 1 race at a track we didn't even practice for in Group 1. It probably did help that we had the Group 3 race here in Manufacturer, because I was kind of still in the rhythm of the track, the way you've got to do it. Even though it's a different classic car, you get the flow of the track from driving whatever car you drive. But you can see points, we pick up just under 2.7k points, pretty much 2.693 points, so very, very nice points. And very happy with that to end the championship, and actually put me into the top 10 overall for the season. So pretty happy with the season. Some races have gone well, some haven't gone quite so well. Could have been a much better season, but again, solid performance, and pretty much happy with where we ended up there. So thank you again to everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button on the screen at the moment, and also hit the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.